Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating and honestly pretty spooky look at the Carolinas.
We are. Specifically, we're diving into this kind of dual nature you find with haunted places across North and South Carolina.
Exactly. Our sources lay out this unique split. On one hand, you've got these genuine historical spots, places just soaked in centuries of, well, pain and tragedy.
And on the other, you have these modern, very organized scream parks, highly commercial.
It really is the difference between, authentic historical trauma you can almost feel and something much more calculated, like engineered entertainment.
And that geographical line is pretty important for understanding this. South Carolina, especially Charleston, it's built on such a painful foundation, historically speaking.
I mean, like wars, slavery, pirates.
Right. Disease, too.
Yeah.
All of that creates this atmosphere. One source actually called it a kind of Southern discomfort, these persistent echoes of the past.
Southern discomfort. I like that term. So if we're talking about that, what kind of energy are we actually looking for here? Analytically, what makes a Charleston ghost story different from, say, just a standard campfire tale?
Well, what's really interesting is this idea of a residual emotional imprint. It's not always about a conscious spirit, like a person trapped there.
More like an echo.
Exactly, like an emotional echo of a terrible event. Almost like a psychic recording just playing over and over, maybe triggered by the environment itself.
Okay. And North Carolina?
North Carolina leans much more towards those seasonal scares, entirely actor-driven, lots of tech, very commercial.
Got it. So that dual nature is really our mission today then. We want to unpack the differences between that residual historical horror and the engineered fright.
And pull out some of the most memorable stories, the specific manifestations that illustrate this divide.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start?
We really have to begin in Charleston. That's the epicenter of this historical residue. The sheer concentration of suffering there across different eras means you have these hubs of really difficult energy.
Okay, lead the way. What's first?
Let's start with maybe one of the heaviest, the old Slave Mart Museum.
Right. Constructed 1859, I believe, for internal slave sales after the international trade was banned.
That's right. And it wasn't just a building. It was this whole ecosystem of cruelty. It had a barracoon, a jail, a kitchen, even a dead house for storing bodies.
God, the descriptions in the sources, just harrowing. Families torn apart right there, people sold in shackles, the violence.
It's hard to really wrap your head around a place being so saturated with pure anguish.
And the reported manifestations seem to reflect that specific systemic horror, don't they? It's not like playful ghosts.
No, not at all. Visitors and staff talk about things that are deeply unsettling. Sudden, crushing cold spots, the sound of chains dragging on the stone floors, and this heavy, shadowy figure, often seen near where the original auction block stood. It's not interactive, they say, just there, watching.
That fits perfectly with that residual imprint idea, doesn't it? Just this loop of pain.
Exactly. A moment of suffering stuck on replay. Now let's contrast that slightly with the old city jail.
Okay, another intense spot. Operated from 1802 all the way to 1939.
And housed pretty much everyone society wanted locked away. Pirates, enslaved people awaiting trial, Civil War POWs, common criminals.
And it's famous for Lavinia Fisher, right? Often called America's first female serial killer. Hanged there in 1820.
That's the story. Her spirit is supposedly still there, very defiant, sometimes seen in a white dress looking, well, pissed off, as one source put it.
But hang on, is there actual evidence these manifestations are unique to the history? Or are these sometimes just common ghost tropes applied to tragic places, like the Lavinia Fisher story itself?
That's a really important point. Her case is sensationalized. Many historians actually question that serial killer label. She was definitely a notorious criminal, part of a gang involved in highway robbery.
But maybe not the first female serial killer.
Probably not in the way we think of it now. That narrative gets amplified, for the spooky tours.
Good point. We need that critical balance. But what stands out to me from the research are some of the other more bizarrely specific details from the jail.
Like what?
Like the accounts of a ghost boy near the basement morgue. He's described as almost playful, but still eerie, tugging on people's clothes, tossing pebbles.
Oh, right, and leaving little stones in visitors' pockets.
Yeah. And then there's that antique wheelchair.
Ah, yes, the antique wheelchair. from the 1820s supposedly belonged to a cholera victim.
And it moves on its own.
That's what's reported. Rolling across the floor, sometimes even deliberately bumping into guests. It's that mix of really profound historical trauma and these specific, almost weirdly physical activities that makes the jail so disturbing.
Okay, so we've got institutional cruelty covered. What about sites where the horror meets, well, nature itself, like White Point Garden?
Right on the waterfront. Beautiful park today, incredibly peaceful.
But its history is anything but. Public hangings happened there until mid-1800s. The sources say maybe up to 200 people executed right there.
And this includes the infamous pirate Stede Bonnet, him and 29 of his crew hanged, and then their bodies were just tossed into the nearby marshes.
So the echoes there must be intense.
Oh, they are. People report seeing apparitions literally hanging from the branches of those ancient oak trees, hearing these blood-curdling screams late at night, and sometimes seeing the faces of the pirates staring back at them from the water near Water Street.
Just unbelievably grim. Okay, so that establishes the sheer scale of suffering in Charleston. Let's maybe zoom in now on some smaller, more personal tragedies, the kind that leave emotional marks on specific buildings.
Yeah, this is where the stories get really intimate, focused on individuals. The Battery Carriage House Inn is a prime example. It actually survived the Civil War.
And it seems to have a whole menu of personalized hauntings. Room 8 is apparently the most feared. Something about a headless Civil War soldier or maybe just a floating torso.
That's the report. Gruesome stuff. But then you go to room 10, and it's a very different, distinct spirit. The gentleman ghost.
Ah, yes, the college student.
A wealthy young man who killed himself by jumping from the roof. Now he appears just as this gray shadow. Very specific story.
What about those glowing orbs in room 3? Like a giant firefly?
Isn't that strange? It's not violent, not even recognizably human, just energy, maybe tied to some specific moment of intense emotion, despair, or even sudden release. Who knows?
The history isn't just confined to Charleston city limits, though. If we move a bit further out to Pawleys Island.
Ah, Pawleys, home to two really memorable, very different kinds of spirits.
Let's start with Alice Flagg. Such a tragic story. Died young, 1849, probably yellow fever or malaria.
Right after a brother who hated her fiancé apparently found her secret engagement ring and threw it into the marsh.
And her manifestation is all about that loss, isn't it?
It really is. It's an act of persistent yearning. Visitors to her grave, it's at All Saints Episcopal Church Cemetery. They often report feeling this sudden, distinct tugging at their rings.
As if she's still searching.
Still desperately searching for the one she lost. That sense of just eternal, heartbroken searching is, well, it's palpable for some people.
And then also on Pawleys, you have a very different kind of local legend. The Gray Man.
Yes, the protector spirit. He supposedly appears on Pawleys Island Beach right before hurricanes hit.
And he warns people.
Tells residents to get inland, seek shelter, and the legend says those who listen to him, when they come back, their homes are miraculously spared any damage.
Wow. A very specific, very regional kind of warning spirit. That's fascinating.
It really is. Now, we can't quite leave Charleston yet. We have to mention the Dock Street Theater.
Right, where the hauntings get a bit theatrical themselves.
Fittingly. The main ghost there is Nettie Dickerson, known as the Red Dress Ghost.
She was a sex worker, right, who frequented the old Planters Hotel, which used to be on that site.
Exactly. And the story goes, she was on the balcony during a storm wearing a bright red dress and was struck and killed by lightning.
And her apparition in the red dress is still seen.
Still seen, opening doors, moving objects, a very vivid, specific ghost tied to a dramatic death.
And isn't there another theatrical ghost there, too? Something about an actor.
Yes. The spirit of Junius Brutus Booth, father of the infamous John Wilkes Booth, is apparently often spotted there, too, wandering around in 19th century clothes.
So it's a stage where the real history and the performance history kind of overlap.
Perfectly put. It really underscores how layered Charleston's hauntings are.
Okay, now let's broaden the scope again for part 3. We need to look at trauma on a more systemic institutional scale. Places tied to mass death, cruelty, what you called forbidden ground.
Right. And one of the most sobering examples has to be the South Carolina Lunatic Asylum in Columbia, established way back in 1821. Locally, it's just known as Bull Street.
And it housed thousands of patients over the years.
Up to 5,000 at its peak. And the records? Well, they indicate pretty horrific conditions. Abuse, neglect, even starvation. Plus, Potentially really invasive procedures like lobotomies, forced sterilizations.
Just unimaginable suffering concentrated in one place for over a century.
Exactly. So it's really not surprising that the site is reportedly intensely active.
And the activity goes beyond just seeing things, right? The sources mentioned sounds.
Yeah, not just simple shadows. We're talking disembodied screams, hospital noises, the actual sounds of suffering, not just the sight of a ghost.
Are there specific spirits people mention?
There's Mary, a spirit apparently dating back to the 1850s, sometimes seen just as a white mist, and the specter of a man pacing endlessly in a straitjacket.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When suffering is confined like that for so long, does the energy just become exponentially more potent?
It's a chilling thought. Look also at Rose Hill Plantation State Historic Site over in Union County, built 1827. During the Civil War, some rooms were used as makeshift hospitals.
And the activity there reflects that wartime trauma.
It seems to. Reports of unexplained whispers inside the house, seeing ghostly Confederate soldiers moving across the old cotton fields.
And didn't Union troops leave some kind of message?
An incredibly ominous one. They supposedly etched the phrase, "Hell is here," into some of the walls when they camped there. That feeling of historical tension, they say, is still almost tangible.
God. And then there are the bridges, symbols of really deep regional pain.
The bridges of agony, as some call them. First, Seven Devils Bridge near Woodruff.
The site of a lynching.
A brutal one. 7 enslaved men were lynched there in the 1800s. Visitors today report feeling this overwhelming wave of despair just crossing it. Some experience uncontrollable shaking.
And weird lights.
Yeah, strange green lights sometimes seen above the bridge at night. Just awful.
And the other bridge legend, Crybaby Bridge.
Near Anderson. The legend is about a mother who, in desperation, threw her newborn into the water below and then hanged herself nearby.
Oh, that's horrifying.
And the story goes, if you stop your car on the bridge, turn off the engine. You might hear the faint, chilling sound of an infant crying.
And car trouble, too.
Frequently reported, headlights suddenly burning out, engines refusing to restart. It's like the tragedy lingers in the very mechanics of the place.
Wow. Okay. That's the dark, heavy historical heritage of South Carolina's hauntings. Just incredibly powerful stuff.
It really is. Rooted in specific, often brutal history.
Right. So now we need to take that hard turn north. Let's completely shift gears and contrast all that historical echo with the highly commercialized seasonal scare industry that's booming in North Carolina.
Yeah, this is where engineered adrenaline really meets cultural demand for a thrill, a totally different beast.
And the key distinction, it seems to me, speaks volumes about the business of fear. These places require consent.
Absolutely. They're seasonal, they're driven by actors, and you almost always have to sign a waiver before you go in.
They're using massive special effects too, right?
Yeah.
Strobes, fog machines, complex sound systems.
Oh, yeah. And they have dedicated safety exits, often called chicken exits. This isn't about encountering historical residue unexpectedly. This is about maximizing an adrenaline rush through performance and technology.
And the scale can be huge. Woods of Terror near Greensboro. That place spans 45 acres.
With 17 different themed attractions. Think about the logistics of that. They even have this nightly opening march hosted by a character called Bone Daddy.
And attractions like Blackout Terror, where you navigate entirely in the dark, that's pure sensory manipulation.
Exactly. And think about the psychological contract there. When you visit, say, the old slave mart, you're passively encountering an echo of suffering you didn't necessarily ask for or expect.
Right.
But when you go to Scarowinds in Charlotte,
the amusement park that transforms for Halloween,
you are actively choosing to subject yourself to, over 300 costumed monsters roaming around themed zones like that new Haunted Maze Defects 2.0.
You're paying for a performance. A thrilling one, hopefully, but definitely a performance, not a historical reckoning.
Precisely. And it demands constant innovation, too, like Granville Haunt Farm near Oxford. They offer a contact-free, drive-through haunted experience based on classic horror movies.
So the commercial horror industry has to keep evolving every year to stay fresh.
Whereas the gentleman ghost in room 10 is probably doing pretty much the same thing he was doing 100 years ago. The historical residue is constant. The commercial scare needs novelty.
And then you've got places like Scarrigan Farms in Mooresville.
Oh, yeah. They're very upfront about the performance aspect. Their website basically warns you that buying a ticket for their mile-long haunted trail means you consent to being, quote, heckled by the local actors.
So the whole transaction is built on that theatrical contract between the performer and the audience member who wants to be scared.
Absolutely. It's entertainment through and through.
Okay. So let's try to wrap this up. What does this all mean? We've looked across the Carolinas, analyzed the sources, and found this really profound split.
Definitely. South Carolina seems fundamentally haunted by its specific, often very difficult history. Whether it's the huge institutional weight of a place like the Bull Street Asylum,
Or the intensely personal agony of an Alice Flagg still searching for her lost ring. It's tied to real events, real trauma.
well, North Carolina has really perfected the art of the highly produced seasonal scare, using actors, effects, and sheer scale to deliver a thrilling but ultimately fleeting performance.
But in both cases, when you visit these locations, you're engaging with stories, aren't you?
You are, whether those stories are rooted in centuries of authentic trauma and loss.
Or based on the brilliant skill, the investment, and the performance of local actors and designers.
And maybe this brings us to a final important question for you, the listener, to think about.
Yeah.
Consider the difference between the feeling you might get imagining the residual emotional imprint of chains dragging at the old slave mart, that deep historical weight,
Okay.
and the feeling you get anticipating those 300 costumed monsters waiting to jump out at Scarowinds.
Right. Two very different kinds of scare.
So the question is, when we seek out a scare, what are we really looking for? Are we searching for some kind of authentic, residual, emotional energy, something that might connect us to the past, maybe even teach us something?
Or are we just looking for a guaranteed thrill? A really good performance that shocks the system and makes us feel alive in the present moment?